This is my homemade compost. It's at varying stages of composition. I've continued to add to it. So today I'm going to be turning it, aerating it, and adding it to the garden. All of the bits that are not broken down fully, such as food, paper towel rolls, toilet paper rolls, and whatever else I might find in here that needs to be broken down a little further, I will be starting a new compost bin and getting that ready as I am taking out all the fall and winter plants and preparing my containers for spring. As you can see here, my compost still has grass and a few other things in it, but it looks really, really good. I've also put some pecans and pecan shells. So let's get some out. Let me show you what it looks like. Now, this compost is not too dry and it's not too wet. If you're starting a compost pile for the first time, it's a very unique balance. You have to have it at least the consistency of a wrung out sponge. Anything excessively wet is going to be anaerobic and it's going to smell, and that's not what you want. And this is what my homemade compost looks like. It could be screened, but I'm going to use it just as it is. This is the second bay. Now this one has more stuff in it. It's not broken down as nicely as the first bin, but I'm going to continue to turn it, aerate it, and I will be using this in the garden as well. Any of the large bits in here will be placed in the first bin I just finished turning to break down even further. I'm also going to be adding some leaves. Leaves are chock full of nutrients your plants need, and I don't mind if I have leaf matter on the top of my containers because I do have worms in my containers, and they will eat that, break it down, and hopefully enrich my soil more than what it was last year. Now, as you can see here, I have a lot more matter in here, a lot more grass. It's a little moist. I even have a loofah that I grew that I threw in here. You can put that in your compost bin as well. But this still looks good. It does need to dry out a little bit, but I'm going to use it in the garden, so I'm not worried about it. The problem I find I have with this setup is sometimes I'll find the odd bits and pieces of maybe plastic or something that doesn't belong in here. It's not always the easiest to get to the bottom of my container, so I do have to shift it around a lot. And sometimes I still don't get all the way to the bottom until I actually turn these compost bays into one another, meaning taking one from one bin, as you'll see shortly, and turning all of that into the second bin is when I'm able to actually get to the very bottom of the bin. But this is how I choose to keep compost because I live in a suburban area and I cannot have open bays. I already had one invader in my garden, first time ever, and I don't want a repeat of that. So this is how I choose to compost. Now I will be turning this first bay into the second bay and getting what's on the bottom. I'm not concerned about the unbroken down bits because I will be starting another new compost bin, and all of those will go at the bottom of the new compost bin to include all the other new bits I'm pulling out of the garden as well as some leaves. So as you see here, I grabbed a handful of leaves, several handfuls, and I'm going to toss them into this compost, trying to work it in, because as soon as I finish working it in to the best of my ability, I will be taking this and adding it to my containers. If you're new to composting, the one thing you have to remember is you can't just set it and forget it. You need to aerate your compost. Aeration means just adding air into it. You have to turn it around mix it up. If you don't do that, it's going to stick together. It's going to be clumpy. It could get smelly, and that is not what you want. So you have to continually move it. I try to move mine around a couple times a week. If I can't get to it a couple times a week, I try to get to it several times a month because I don't want it to sit and not process. I need my compost to continually process so that I can continually use it and continually make more. If I find the random bits and pieces of plastic or garbage, I take it out and try to keep my compost bin as clean as possible of matter that doesn't belong in here. What I found is gardening is exercise. Turning compost is definitely a workout. This is very heavy matter, and the more you have in here, the heavier it is, because this is not a large container. It is relatively large, but it could be larger. This is roughly about, I think, 45-gallon trash can. You can see there isn't a lot of space to turn, so it can get pretty heavy to try to move this around, and that's a workout. So if you're interested in composting, you're interested in a natural workout, I say go for it, because all the twisting and turning and bending you have to do to move this stuff around will definitely make sure that you have great looking arms. Now, this motion is repetitive, but it is definitely necessary. And I'm coming to the end of all the turning. It's almost time to add this to my containers. I've decided to add the drier compost that's a little bit more broken down to the compost with the leaves that need more time to break down. I'm turning this over so that I can create a new compost bin in this trash can, and then I will take this compost and add it to the garden, as I've mentioned before. So as I'm getting close to the bottom, I'm noticing that I have not been turning the bottom because it's hard for me to get to. And you'll start to see whatever you have that's clumped at the bottom will be stuck in a huge mass. And for me, that's grass. I began to use grass last year for the first time. And grass, if it's not distributed throughout your compost bin, is going to clump together. It can smell, and it will make your compost bin very, very hot. Getting this off the bottom takes a little doing, but I am going to get this all out. Now, you've noticed I've put all the unbroken down bits, all the cardboard and things like that on the top. I will be transferring those back into this can once I have everything out, because I am starting a new compost bin, and I want to start with my browns and then layering up my greens, which I'll be pulling out of the garden hopefully sometime soon as I prepare it for spring. I hope you can see as I get closer to the bottom, it's a lot of clumped up material. It is a bit moist. I do have holes at the bottom of this container, and if you can see, I drilled holes all along the side going from top to bottom. So it's getting air. It's not getting that much air, but it is getting some air. I'm going to repeat the process of compost and leaves until I've taken all of the compost out of this first bin. Now it's time to start getting some compost into the garden. I have chop and drop on many of my pots. I'll be cutting some of that back, covering some of that up, and leaving it to nourish the pots as well. This is a raspberry that's going to grow towards the fence. This cane is dead, but it is beginning to send up some new canes, so I know this baby is alive. That's one. Now on to the next. As you all can see, I have completed putting the homemade compost on my pots. Every pot outside of the cattle panel, except for a few in the back there, because I'm still potting those up, they have the homemade compost in them. And I did this because I was unable to put compost in the fall. It is my goal to create my own compost as much as possible and top my pots every fall, and if I can, if it needs it, in the spring. But I'm trying to make sure that I am creating good spaces to grow, healthy spaces to grow. And in order to do that, you need to feed your soil. And how I'm choosing to do that is using my very own compost. So that is it for me today. I greatly appreciate you all joining me in the garden. I need to get inside. It is drizzling a little bit, so I won't be able to plant up anything in the pots towards the back. I have a couple pots back there that I need to finish potting up, but for right now they are just sitting pretty. So thank you for joining me in the garden today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, share the video if you so feel inclined to do so. And I want to say, have a great day, everybody. Until the next time, bye-bye for now.